Elena had always been the nice one, the agreeable one, the whatever you think is best one. The girl who smiled when confused, nodded when uncertain, and said yes, even when her whole body whispered no. She wasn't spineless. She was scared. Scared of being wrong, of disappointing people, of not being liked. So she became a collector of opinions. Every choice, outfit, major, job, relationship, went through a council of friends, family, co-workers, and strangers online. And the more she asked, the less she knew what she actually wanted. One day, while walking through an old part of town, she found herself standing in front of a tiny antique shop. The windows fogged, the sign half faded. But something about it pulled her in. Inside, dusty shelves, clocks that didn't tick, a violin hanging with no strings, and in the far corner, a mirror, full length, framed in iron vines, faintly glowing. She walked up to it, expected to see herself. Instead, the mirror whispered, "What are you looking for?" Elena stepped back. No one else was in the room. "What?" The mirror shimmered. Then her reflection changed, just slightly. She looked braver, taller, like she knew something. Then the mirror whispered again, "Do you want to see what you believe?" Elena blinked. Was this some trick? A prank? But when she leaned in again, her reflection wasn't smiling anymore. It looked tired, sad, as if it had been waiting to speak for years. And in the glass, the whisper returned. "You keep asking the world to tell you who you are, but I can only show what you already think." Elena started going back. At first, once a week, then every few days, eventually every evening after work. She told no one, not because it was secret, because it was sacred. The mirror never judged, never corrected. It only asked questions. And worse, it only reflected back what she already feared. One day she asked, "Am I good enough?" The mirror darkened. Her reflection hesitated, shrank, looked at the floor. "You're only enough if they say so," it whispered. Another time, "Do they love me?" The reflection blurred. "They love the version you perform." Another, "What if I stop trying so hard?" The reflection faded into fog. "Then they'll leave." Elena kept coming back. She knew the mirror wasn't magic. Not really. It wasn't giving her answers. It was giving her herself. But it was a version of herself shaped by years of outside voices, by every should she had ever absorbed. And now, those voices weren't outside anymore. They were inside the glass. At work, she started second-guessing herself more than usual. At home, she changed outfits 3 times before going out, then didn't go at all. When friends texted, she typed, "I'm fine," then opened the mirror again to ask, "Why don't I feel fine?" The reflection smiled sadly. "Because you've never let your real voice speak." She stared. Tears welled up, not because of what she saw, but because she finally realized. The mirror had never lied. She had. It was a Sunday evening when the power went out. A thunderstorm had swept across the city. Streetlights flickered, then vanished. Phones lost signal. Everything went still. Elena sat alone in her apartment, wrapped in a blanket. No screens, no sounds. Just rain tapping on the window and her own breath in the dark. She should have felt peaceful, but the silence, it was loud, too loud. Every opinion she had collected over the years began echoing inside her. That's not realistic. You're too emotional. You should be more confident. You always need validation. She covered her ears. Didn't help, because the voices weren't just around her anymore. They lived in her now. For the first time, she realized what the mirror had really done. It hadn't shown her anything new. It had simply revealed the weight she carried. 1,000 invisible strings, tugging her in opposite directions. She couldn't remember the last time she'd made a decision without running it through 5 other people. She couldn't even remember what she actually wanted. The next morning, the storm had passed. Elena didn't go to work, didn't open her phone. She walked, all the way back to the antique shop. But the windows were fogged over. The sign, gone. The door, locked. She pressed her palm against the glass. Inside, she could see the mirror. Still standing, still silent, still waiting. She whispered, "I want to see who I was before I let the world rename me." The mirror didn't shimmer, didn't glow, but something inside her did. A pulse, a thought, a tiny, fragile voice. Then stop asking who to be, and start remembering who you were. Elena stepped back. For the first time, she didn't feel afraid to walk away. She turned and left the mirror behind. For the first time in years, Elena stopped explaining herself. She stopped finishing her sentences with, "But I don't know," or, "If that makes sense." She stopped turning every decision into a survey. Which shoes to wear, whether to cut her hair, whether to say no. She stopped asking people to validate her no. She just said it. And at first, it felt like being suspended in air, like she was floating above a world she didn't quite belong to anymore. There were moments of panic. What if I'm being selfish? What if I'm making the wrong call? What if people notice I'm not trying so hard to please them? Some did notice. A friend said, "You've changed. You're not as agreeable lately." Elena smiled. Maybe I was never supposed to be. Another friend pulled away, one that only ever came around when Elena was bending. She let her go, not with bitterness, but with peace. She started journaling again, but not for quotes. Not for social media captions, just for herself. Raw, private, real. Some nights she'd write one sentence. "I don't need to be louder. I just need to be clearer." One afternoon, walking past a store window, Elena caught her reflection. It startled her, not because she looked different, but because she recognized herself. There were no whispers, no internal editor, no need to pose, just her. Still, grounded, real. She didn't need a magic mirror anymore. She was becoming the mirror herself, a reflection that finally belonged to her. It was a Tuesday afternoon when the email arrived. A job offer, one she hadn't expected. Not the best pay, not the flashiest company, but it was something she'd quietly dreamed of. Writing. Real writing. The kind that wasn't for ads or branding or selling other people's stories. Just words. Hers. The old Elena would have forwarded it to 10 people. What do you think? Would this be stupid? Am I being impulsive? But this time, she didn't forward anything. She closed her laptop, made a cup of tea, sat by the window with her notebook, and wrote, "No one else lives in my skin. No one else dreams in my voice. No one else gets to decide what's worth it for me. She read it twice. Then, with hands that used to shake, she opened the email again and clicked Accept. Later that evening, her phone buzzed with messages. One friend said, "Wait, you didn't even ask us what we thought." Another, "This isn't like you." And maybe they were right. Maybe it wasn't like the version of her they had gotten used to. But maybe that was the point. She replied with just one sentence. This time, I didn't need a second voice. Then turned her phone off. She didn't feel brave. She felt honest. There's a difference. Bravery is when you fight fear. Honesty is when you stop pretending you're afraid. That night, she looked at herself in the mirror again. Not the antique one, just her bathroom mirror. It didn't whisper, didn't glow. But when she looked into her own eyes, she heard something soft. Welcome back. A few weeks later, Elena walked by that old alley again. The antique shop was gone. No broken windows, no "for lease" sign. Just gone. Like it had never been there. Like it had only existed for as long as she needed it. She stood where the mirror used to be, closed her eyes. No whispers, no shimmer, just the wind and the weight of her own breath. At first, she missed the mirror, not because it told her the truth, but because it reflected the truth she had been too scared to name. Now, she was learning to reflect herself, without glass, without guidance, without asking anyone first. She started making small choices without outside votes, ordering what she craved, wearing what felt good, leaving conversations that left her feeling smaller. She didn't explain herself, not because she didn't care, but because she finally did. One day, at a family dinner, someone made a passive comment. "Elena's always been a little indecisive, right?" She smiled, took a sip of water, and said, "Not anymore." The room paused, then moved on. And so did she. Later that night, she stood in her bedroom, lights off, moonlight spilling through the curtain, and caught her reflection in the glass. No makeup, no posture, just Elena. Not the agreeable one, not the easy one, just the whole one. And she said to the girl in the glass, "You don't need anyone else to see you. You finally see yourself. You won't find clarity in louder voices. You'll find it in the quiet, where you finally stop asking and start listening to you. Stop chasing reflections. Start becoming one. Keep rising.